Thanks, everybody, and welcome to the Rocha Revolution here on my Substack. It's an honor today to be joined by my friend, a client, a brother, Senator Ruben Gallego. Ruben, thanks for being here today.
Of course, brother.
So there's been a lot. Look, I wrote down a few things when I was waiting on you to get on. One thing I want to talk.
Surprised you could write, but yeah.
So you can't totally. I don't write very well. I write like a Marine. I've been seeing you on lots and lots of social media. I've been seeing you on lots and lots of podcasts and Substack. In a day when Democrats have come to me all the time going, well, Chuck, why does the right always have such a good echo chamber? And why do we keep losing Latino man? And as you, one of the only dudes who ever worked with your hand, I was like, well, have you seen Ruben Gallego? He's everywhere. He's everywhere so much. His paid consultants are mad he's not on his show because he's on everybody else's show. Tell the folks listening your strategy of being everywhere all at once, just like we did in the campaign.
Sure. First of all, we need to work on this angle. I look like my hair is really thinning. Like, that's ridiculous.
Surely not. Do you know what fixes that?
Why would I talk to you? You're bald headed, right?
A hat will fix it. Like being everywhere all at once.
Yeah. Look, I think, remember you and I, when we started the campaign, it was like 2.5 years ago when I started, actually before that. My thesis and my theory of this was that, like, the hardest people that we're going to be able to reach or have a problem reaching are going to be Latino men, right? Because we knew that Latino men, it's not that they're not interested in politics, like, they're fucking busy. Right? They work hard, they get home, they're tired, they want to take care of their families, they want to have, a cerveza con sus amigos, and they want to go to bed. Because guess what? The next day you have to start again, right? Yep. You live that world, I live that world, right? I remember working at the meatpacking factory, getting home. I had maybe 2-3 hours that I was solidly awake and not tired from work before I can, essentially go to sleep, right? In those 2 to 3 hours, they're not going to engage in politics. They're not going to go watch one of these shows and talk news, talk about, no, they're not going to do that, right? Nope. And so 2-ish years ago, when you and I talked, I said, we need to make sure that we are ever present, but we have to be ever present in every feed, not necessarily on Univision, not necessarily on Telemundo, not necessarily on your kind of like traditional channels, because we need to make sure that we're able to get to these guys, because these guys are going to look at their phone in between work, right? So while they were, hammering something, cooking something, cleaning something, they will look at their cell phone and they will look at a short either ad or, if you're lucky, something that you created that was viral, right? And so the thing that you and I came up with is, like, we want to create viral moments that were culturally competent, that would force us into their world, right?
Yep.
And that the problem with that is that, as you know, there's no money in that.
That's right.
Like, if you go,
I'm not making 15% off of you wanting to be in their world.
Yeah, you're making 50% on it, and in some ways, it is actually time intensive. Right. So, for example, if you remember when we put together the boxing match, like, that was relatively cheap. I think it cost me a total of $1,500, right?
Yep.
But it was time intensive to build everything else like that. But how viral was that moment? Right? We were pushed into these working class Latino men's social feeds that, Ruben Gallego is a Latino man that understands the cause of Latino men, which is to be supportive of the family, be a good be a husband, be a good family leader. But if you had talked to your traditional Democratic world, it had been like, that is not worth the time to do that, right? And that actually did happen, remember? Yeah. The first go around at this.
Exactly right.
And so now, why are you seeing me everywhere, right? Well, because, like, we're taking everything that comes along. If you want to come, you want to talk to me, if I have the time, I'll take it. I'm going to tell you what I think. It may not be what you would consider orthodox. I think a lot of times I'm speaking in ways that scares a lot of kind of your traditional Democrats. But because I think I'm talking the way that most Americans actually talk, and especially most Latino men think, I think that's actually somehow getting out there and kind of resonating with, like, the world.
I think that's spot on. And I want to pull on that thread a little bit if we can. I was talking to my son yesterday. My son is a 35-year-old steam fitter in Pittsburgh. So he's been a journeyman. He's been through the 5-year apprentice program. I helped him get into welding school to actually get into the apprentice program. And it made me what made me think about this was your New York Times. If y'all haven't seen or listen to Ruben's, the senator's New York Times op-ed video that came out on Monday. A, you can watch him cry, which is always good for me. Two, you can hear a bunch of good shit. And the New York Times guy he giggled a lot about big ass trucks. And I'll get to the big ass trucks. My son used to ask me, because on Saturday, so when I worked in the factory, I was an organizer. I'd worked on campaigns, and I finally got a job at the International. So I moved to Pittsburgh. I got a house, and I never forget. I paid like $190,000 for that house, Ruben, back in the day in Pittsburgh, which was super. But it was a new home. It was really nice.
Yeah.
But I went and bought the truck I'd always dreamed of owning, which was this giant Hummer truck, which was the H3. Was it the military Hummer?
Yeah, I remember the H3s. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had with like the little H2s, right?
Yes. And it was red, and it had chrome wheels on it because I'm a Mexican. And every Saturday, me and my son would wash the truck. And you go, why do we have to wash the truck every weekend? And I was like, Charles, my son's Charles. I said, I never would have dreamed. And I was like, 40 years old then? I'm 33. So I was in my mid 30s. I was like, I'd never dreamed.
I can't tell how old you are. Like, Chuck, beige don't age. We all know that.
Right. So I told him, I was like, I never knew I would ever be able to own a truck like this. And I want to make sure that it's clean and that folks know that it's me in it. And that it looks sharp all the time because it's my truck. I have so much pride in this truck. So I felt so seen, and I put that in our private group chat with your campaign, that when you talk about Latino men in general, and their not obsession, but the way they love their trucks, it reminded me of that story with me and my son. And I felt seen because you don't see many Democrats or campaigns talking about the importance of that and what it means. And I want you to kind of bridge that gap for the listeners. A lot of folks listen to this thing because you talked about it in the New York Times about like, we don't show up and talk to people about the little simple things in their life, right?
Right. Well, also like we can't think about it as simple. That's the problem that we do. We think about this as simple. To them, this is actually really important.
Sure.
Right?
What's to me? It's everything.
And I remember like when I first brought this, this idea or a phrase about the troquita, there was some pundits that like made fun of me, like, oh, you're diminishing like the roles of men and what they actually care about, or Latino men. I'm like, no, actually, I'm not. I actually understand them better than you, because I understand that truck, that shiny truck, is very symbolic of them finding worth, not because they find worth in the actual vehicle, but it shows to their community that I take care of my family. I have succeeded. I worked hard. I have bought this, and I am paying for this, and I would take care of this car. I would wash it nicely. And you know what happens on Sunday? You load up the truck. You take your kid to the church, and then afterwards you go to the local restaurant to have your breakfast. And you are basically making a statement to your community that I'm the leader of my family. I have brought success to my family. I have brought security to my family, which is a valuable thing that these men value. The thing that we don't do as Democrats is we don't value what they value. We somehow try to diminish it when these are the men that, if they understood that we the Democrats are the people that will make that happen, will make that help you feel secure, help you feel economically secure, help you understand that there's going to be a future for you and your kids in this country. It's going to help you live the American dream. They'll be with us. But instead, we find ourselves a lot of times either diminishing them or talking down to them because we just don't understand them, which the reason we don't understand is because like most of the people that work in Democratic politics aren't like me or you. They come from very, very rich and privileged backgrounds, and they think because they may have read a couple of Yale studies on voter outreach that they know how to talk to these men. And guess what? They don't. And we just discovered this last election cycle.
Yeah, and it's been frustrating for me, and I'm so happy to hear you, and that's why I work for you, because I think there's very few folks that really understand this and give the voice to that. Me and Ebony went home, not this weekend, but last weekend for my high school homecoming. We went to a football game, her first high school football game ever. It was funny as hell.
Oh, really?
But, oh yeah, she'd never seen drill teams and cheerleaders.
So much fun.
Yeah. It was so much fun. And so when we were renting a car, normally I'm very snobby about renting cars and flying. Like I stay on one airline and one rental car so I can get the points so I can have a vacation.
Yeah.
So when we got there, she goes, why aren't we going to the Emerald Isle where we normally are to get the car? I'm like, because we're going home to see the boys. I rented a 4-wheel drive pickup to show up with my boys. Again, even when you're thinking about what your other boys are thinking about you, I'm not going to show up in a Toyota Corolla because Chuck, quote unquote, has made it because I get to live in DC and they think all these things. So I show up in a big truck. Again, a metaphor for me letting them know. Yeah, the whole thing is that when I talk about cultural competency, it's not just cultural competency of being a man or just a Latino or working class guys with some calluses on my hands. It's just understanding. And I'll say this and I'll kick it back to you is that the difference in the Ruben Gallego for Senate campaign that was different than any campaign I'd worked on, even Bernie Sanders, was that when we would have a strategy session, so many times the candidate would defer to the consultant because they've done, quote unquote, so many of these races.
Right.
Where in Ruben's case, he would push back on pieces, not everything, but on pieces of what the strategy was because he'd go, I know that that's how that worked in Minnesota in that governor's race, but it don't work in Southern Arizona because of this. And I think this is where a lot of times, if you're listening to this and you're a candidate, don't be afraid to question your gut because you know your people better than any consultant and take that from a consultant.
Sure. Well, let's look at if you look over your left shoulder, Chuck, you see that sign, right?
Yes, right. This one right here.
Fernando Gallego, right? That was me. Remember we had a big discussion about that? And we developed.
Wait, I got a special for you.
And they got that one. That was another one. Now, if you are
that's
a non-Latino and non-Mexicano voter or someone with a Mexican background, you show that Loteria card again. And you look at this, you don't understand this. But if you're Mexican, you know exactly what this is. This and that sign behind that Chuck has, these things went like hotcakes. We had people calling all over the country asking for us to mail them these things. This is the first time that actually had seen something of this nature, right? But it was not easy to actually get those out the door, if you remember correctly. We had fights because people did not understand the value of it. And the thing I was trying to explain to people is we are translating culture to politics, and we're doing it in the most competent and quickest way, right? So that the sign behind you is like a basically snippet of the little Loteria card.
It's this,
right? People, when we printed this, people were coming out of the woodwork asking for that. People had them on their yard signs. People put it on. We started selling t-shirts and people wanted the t-shirts, right? Because Latinos finally felt seen by a political campaign. Because that was the first time in Arizona that someone had actually done something like that. And I could not have done that before when I was still running for the House of Representatives because I just didn't have that much money. And nobody was, I was a safe seat Democrat, so nobody wanted to give me money. But we did that. We did like the Loteria cards. We did all these things that people were like, what the hell is that? But they felt like this is my world. Like for you guys look at those two things. Like Chuck, you grabbed the Loteria card and you put it into a direct mail piece, right?
On the front of this piece is was just a piece of lit in Spanish that you would hand out sometimes at work sites because on the front was this. Again, this is another lesson to you consultants, but on the back was this, right? And then we end up turning this into a mail piece.
Yep.
And sending it to every Latino that had more stuff on the front about you and who you were.
And you go door to door and there was houses that would literally just took the Loteria card and they put it on their window. Right.
I think behind my hat, if you can see up here is when he referred to the rodeo earlier.
Oh yeah.
Up there, I'd put it you normally can't see it because of my hat. It's like that again, just the artwork in this, right? It was really like it said something people wanted the artwork of that. Yep. And this is not to say me and Ruben had it all figured out. It was to say that we understood what people wanted. And I had never been in charge with Ruben of a budget that big where we were spending tens of millions of dollars on TV. Why couldn't we afford to make the Loteria sign into a yard sign with coroplast, like a regular sign that people would actually, there were more of those in yards than regular Ruben Gallego Senate races.
That's right.
Because people wanted those. Well, that being said, the next question I had is like, this all piece moves into also the way you talked about being a father. Mm-hmm. And me and you both grew up without having a father. My grandfather was more like my dad. My mom was only 16 years older than me. And so my grandfather was the man in my life. But when you would go and talk to people, and we miss this, I think, as Democrats, when folks are like, Chuck, how did you and Ruben? I'm like, well, hey, first, I get to take credit for a lot of what Ruben was thinking and let Chuck Rocha take that. That's just how us boys work. The second piece is that when we talked about,
I get to be a senator, so it doesn't really matter, right?
yeah, you win. You win. Absolutely. Is the point about being a father and how you talk to people about father. The big ass truck, funny shit. But also, it also bleeds into the fatherhood thing of providing for your family piece. Jump into that a little bit.
I think it's like, for me, look, I'm not poor, without a doubt, right? Like, but I still have poor boy mentality.
Right.
Like, I grew up, my first bed in 7 or 8 years was my college dorm room bed, right?
Because you had sisters and you were in Chicago and you slept on the couch.
I wanted them to have a bedroom. I wanted them to have the bed. So, like, I sacrificed for my sisters, and like, that's not something they asked. It's something that I had to do as the man of the house because my father had left. But we need to stop looking at men that take pride in their fatherhood, take pride in being fathers, take pride in providing for their family, and automatically assume that that is some level of misogyny, because that's not the case. You have some strong Latino men at home. Their wives or partners are very strong Latina women.
Right.
If you talk to a strong Latina woman, you ask her, "Are you a feminist?" She's like, "Absolutely, I am a feminist." Right. And if you talk to a Latino man, you'd say, what do you think about your role in this family? My role is to be the provider of my family, to bring security in my family, to be the leader of my family. Those two worlds can exist within a house, right? In our little democratic world, we can't actually envision that. We need to be able to, which I think we did in our campaign, we need to value Latinas being strong, powerful women of their families and leader of their families, because a lot of them they are. And we also, at the same time, need to understand and appreciate what Latino men are doing, right? And by the way, I don't think this is just exclusive to Latino men and Latinos in general. I think this is true of almost every community. The voter does not live in this bifurcated world where there's these perfect rules, right? They just don't exist that way. They exist in a world where, yes, there could be a strong male figure in a house that is led by with a strong woman that considers her a feminist.
Just like you said in the New York Times, this on Monday, why not both?
Why not both? Because, but by the way, it's not just why not. That actually is what happens right now.
Right. Absolutely.
It's literally what happens right now. And we see it all the time. It actually exists. It's there in real time. You see these families, they exist, and somehow we are afraid to talk to them that way, right? We are afraid to go, like, I'm not, because you heard me speak. I will go on stage and I say, if you're a man, you should be able to work 40 hours a week, pay your rent, pay your mortgage, and be able to take your family on vacation. It's okay for you to have a dignified life, right? That is your role as a leader of your family. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the same sentence, I'll talk about being raised by a strong Latina woman who, beat me into success, right?
Both of us.
Yes.
Both.
With my 3 other Latina sisters who also beat me into a successful man. But like, you can do both. Like, I get it. I think that for many years there was the Democrats, because of, some really bad experiences, I think, where, yes, we may have had campaigns that were too misogynistic. There were misogynistic candidates, Democratic male candidates, but that's not how the voter is. And it's okay to talk to them in the way that they understand. And when you don't, it's hard for them to make a connection with you, because when they're going through pain, and by the way, the voter, especially in Arizona, was going through a lot of pain this last election. If you're not willing to understand the charge that they have, the responsibility they have, and how important it is to their identity, they're not going to trust you anything else. It's just not. And it sucks to say that. But until you actually accept who they are, they're not going to turn around and accept who you are and vote for you.
You're so right. And I want to get to the shutdown in a minute. But, Donald Trump, and folks hate me because I give him credit for certain things. And he knew how to tap in. Even though he was lying, he was misleading them. He knew that folks were frustrated. And he took advantage of that because they were looking for anything that was outside of the norm. Back to your point about the consultants with the master's degrees that are well-meaning, that are good Democrats, but didn't understand that regular working class people were living through this trauma of how do I make the bills this month?
Right.
How do I get this? Well, let's talk to them about choice or Social Security or all things that are important. But at that moment in time, when things are really like, you can remember when you were poor. I remember when I was poor. If I had to go to a payday lender on Thursday to get diaper money for Charles to get till Friday and pay $50 for a $30 loan, I remember the feeling of walking in there.
Yeah, I remember.
So
I
when
remember,
I
I remember
write
not
the,
being able to fill out my gas tank. I remember like going to the grocery store and saying, I only have $50 and to make sure these $50 last me a week, right? How do I maximize this, right? Like that's
real shit because
it's real traumatizing shit.
right. And
That's
you
the other.
and as a man, you feel a certain kind of way. Like you're less than because you're walking into this place, you got to get this
Absolutely.
loan. And it's just something I can't explain to other folks. And
Right.
I say it because it's
Well,
how
because
I was raised. It's like,
Chuck, it's very simple. You feel like less of a man,
right.
right? I mean, we should not be ashamed to say that. And I think Democrats have a problem saying it. We're like that we recognize that like some men and when we are failing, because that's what I've heard, by the way, this last cycle, Latino men were telling me I'm failing. Like I'm failing as a man, right? I'm supposed to provide for my family, I'm supposed to provide for economic security. I am failing. And then what is our response as Democrats running for office, not ours, but others, was like, it's getting better. Do you see what I'm saying? And even Donald Trump, his messaging was also really off, but at least it was closer to where they were, right? Because like he was talking about groceries once he figured out what the fuck those were. And number two, like no
He
tax
talked a
on
lot
tips,
about jobs. He talked about lots of
no
jobs in
tax on
America.
tips, and no tax on overtime.
Right.
So like, he's at least thinking about this versus I think a lot of the Democrats
we were talking about democracy and fairness, right? And
which matters when things are good, but when you have to pay the bills, I mean, I've been on that. In that situation where I was that one paycheck away from missing rent or whatever, whatever it is. And like, it's like, you don't understand that stress. Now add kids to that. I can't even imagine being in that situation. Like it boggles my mind with 3 kids. If I ever find myself in a situation, it would like drive myself nuts. There's a lot of Latino families with 3 kids and people making just $60,000. And that's not
crazy.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Everybody should know that Ruben has a wonderful wife and has 3 kids under the age of 6.
So I have an 8-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, and I have a 4-month-old. Yeah.
He's 8 now.
He's
Jesus
beautiful
Lord.
boy. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, he looks just like him. It's funny. If we were talking about work more, you rarely hear, and we talked about this a lot on the Ruben Gallego campaign, is work, the sanctity of work. Ruben would show up and play. The dignity of work is what I'm getting at here, is that we would go to work sites where construction workers were coming into a place. We'd set up tacos and coffee. There'd be a shift of people going in and there'd be a shift of people coming out, all depending on what time we were there, right?
Yeah.
And Ruben would stop and have these conversations with men going into work and people that were getting off of third shift coming out of work. Now, normally, in the, again, well-intentioned establishment consultant world, that's not worth the candidate's time because he can only talk to so many people in that time period, and he could speak to so many more people if you'd give me another $1 million for a TV ad. But Ruben would demand to be there. We would do this over a longer period of time, coupled with soccer tournaments, rodeos, lowrider clubs, and then you start seeing how he overperformed with Latino men and men in general. And by the way, lots and lots of Republicans, because it's the same group of people where most folks won't have the time to at least show up and have a conversation. When your story resonates, Democrats, that's how you can start seeing success. And the key to all of this, and this kind of goes back to my union days, is when you root that in work and then a commonality of like, this is my story. My story is starting with this work and the dignity of work and where I worked from, whether it was a short order cook or a meat packing plant. Then folks were like, well, I may not agree with Ruben on everything that he's voted for as a congressman over the years, but he seems like, get this, a likable guy and I can relate.
Yes. Well, if you remember one of the things I told you, Chuck, and I told everyone at the beginning of the campaign, like this election is going to be decided by issues, but it's mostly going to be decided also by a vibe. And that was like hard for people to imagine because I said we have to create a vibe campaign. What was the vibe that you like Ruben Gallego? Ruben Gallego understands you, and we're gonna create a campaign around that, and it ended up being important because it was not good to be a Democrat at that time, right?
Shitty year.
Shitty year. I mean, we ended up. It was an R+9 year in Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
I think that year.
Folks should also know that there's 300,000 more registered Republicans in the state when you start comparing it to Nevada and Minnesota as well.
Yeah. So we ended up winning, I think somewhere between 10 and 15%, don't quote me, of Republicans to come to our side, overperform with independents. I think there was some weird stat, we overperformed with white men,
Mm-hmm.
which was crazy. And there was what's that?
And when we created those heat maps, you could see that I'm talking about things that only me and Ruben have seen because we work together, but you could see the suburbs around Phoenix where people, and sure, there was white women there too, but this was where a lot of Republican men voted for Ruben because there was a commonality around his military and around his working and around him being a father. These are the things that I think if we're going to win in the midterms, the Democrats running in targeted seats have to do, right?
Right, I have to do, but the opposite president, you're talking about, you and Ebony going to high school football games. I went to high school football games. So I went to high school football games during the election. I didn't give speeches. I didn't do anything else. I went, made sure, I had a school board member or, somebody that knew me. They took me down, shook hands with
walked you around
the coach, but then went to the boosters, right? Because the boosters are all the parents. The parents are the ones that are really involved. And when I shook hands and say the political, I said, thank you for being here. Boom, left.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
And we targeted, for example, Goodyear, Arizona, which is a swing suburb of Arizona. We targeted Goodyear, Arizona. I went to their big rival game. I went there. I mean, sure, as president, we walked around. I walked around, and a lot of things, it would just be, we unfortunately had to have a whole operation around this, to make sure to see if I could get my family to go to stuff like this. Because I wanted to go to events where they could see me, my wife, my 2 kids, right? And then when it made this it made this communication connection, oh, I have a family, he has a family, he understands what I'm going through. That matters.
And he's real.
And people people don't put enough value into that.
And he's real. There's 2 things that folks need to know. On my Substack, we talk a lot about campaign strategy, and folks will come to me and say, well, Ruben was in the suburbs because he had to flip these these voters, Republicans, independents to his side. Sure, he had to, and that was a part of our strategy. We knew that early on. We had done polls. We knew that. But you know what else we had to do, and we did at the same time, is we knew we had to increase the base support inside of Phoenix, inside of Latinos. And so Ruben hasn't talked about how we would be doing those on Friday nights, but then on Saturday and Sunday, we'd also be hosting, not us, but local communities, carne asadas in their backyard, where they were bringing folks together. I remember showing up in a precinct just outside of Eastern Phoenix, where this was happening every weekend, y'all.
It's in Peoria, yeah.
Right. But this is where campaigns 101 for those of you listening, where you can be in the suburbs doing that, but then also ginning up your support of neighbors hosting these things in community, in base precincts. Democrats get this wrong, these well-intentioned consultants again, by thinking you just go out and worry about flipping swing voters.
Well, so if you remember, there was this idea that, there was, at the beginning of our campaign, there was this idea that either we had to get swing voters, which means white voters in the suburbs, or you had to gin up Latino vote, but you could not do both. Because if you needed to gin up the Latino vote, you were going to do things that were too ethnic centric that would turn off these these swing white voters. And if you were appealing just to swing white voters, you would turn off these ethnic Latino, working class Latino men, because you're not be able to connect. And it was my thing. And I told everybody from day one, you remember this, I'm like, listen, if a working class kid like me, who freaking is enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, went to Iraq, fought in some of the hardest effing battles, graduated from fucking Harvard, right, cannot bridge this world, then nobody can bridge this world.
Right.
Right. And so we're going to do both. We're not going to tone down our Latino-ness. I'm not going to tone down my education, because remember that? People were like, oh, you need to.
Oh, no. I remember that whole battle.
Yeah. Don't talk so much about Harvard. I'm like, why? Well, you want people to connect with you. I'm like, Latinos appreciate that I led my family out of poverty. Latinos appreciate that I didn't come from a rich family. I worked my ass off, figured out how to get into Harvard, and then led my family out of poverty. They're going to appreciate that. They're not going to be mad and think that I'm out of touch. Actually, they think that's probably a point of pride. But there was a big conversation in the campaign, like, oh, you should de-emphasize Harvard and emphasize Marines. I'm like, no. When at least it comes to the Marine Corps, let's talk about the fact that I'm both, right? Because in our communities, in some very unfortunate situation, and Chuck would tell you, we don't have many role models, right? I didn't know anybody that went to college until I met a lawyer, right?
Me
Who was
neither.
representing me. Not because I went to jail, because I got ran over by a car. That's the first Latino I ever met that actually had a college degree. I was surprised when I met him. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm a lawyer. I'm like, you're a lawyer? He's like, yeah. I was like, how'd you become a lawyer? He's like, I went to law school. I'm like, that's fucking law school? I mean, like, it was so crazy, right? And like, and by the way, that happened during the campaign. We had people coming up to me, special single parents, moms that would come up to me and they're like, can you meet my son? Can you meet my daughter? I'm raising them in the same situation that you raised up. I want them to see that they can do this, right? Like, it matters. This stuff matters. But we had to break a lot of preconceived notions
For
about
sure.
the community and about education, about things like that.
I don't think anybody's ever on all of this damn social media you're doing, because they're not all campaign strategies. You've went this deep for folks to understand that that's the real difference. It's easy to say, oh, he was in the Marines, that's why he overperformed. Oh, he's Latino, that's why he overperformed. There's lots of lazy pundits who step to me on TV all the time and like, oh, my name was Ruben Gallego, I'd overperform. I'm like, no, you wouldn't, because you'd run the same campaign in a box that the Democratic consultants always told you to. I've been running campaigns for 35 years. I'll promise you, I was in meetings where he was like, I don't care what y'all think. This is what we're going to do. I'll meet you halfway, but we are not doing that. And I'd never seen a candidate actually do that in a race.
I mean, we overperformed every Democrat that won. The only people that overperformed us was, I think, Tester in Montana. He lost. We overperformed. We had the same performance as Sherrod Brown. Obviously, he lost. But we also did way better than all the other swing states, and we had less to work with. We have, like, if I had the amount of Democrats that all these other swing states have, which shall remain nameless, I don't start fights, we freaking won this. And don't forget, we also had a Green Party Latino candidate that
who
jumped
took 3% of our vote in most of our base precincts.
Yep, 3%.
So we'd have won by even more.
More.
And what he's not saying is, in the last 60 days, folks quit giving us money because they thought we were going to win.
Yep. And that Green Party candidate got millions of dollars of IEs
from outside donors that were very much billionaires. The thing that you're talking about, that Democrats are scared to death to talk about again, and the way that I have been wrapping it up, is this aspiration, and Latinos being aspirational, thinking about you going to Harvard, thinking about you being a senator, thinking about whatever. When Ruben says a Latino guy wants to get enough money to buy a big ass truck and take care of his family, a Latina wants to have enough money to make sure their kid could go to Harvard. Right. And it's okay. Donald Trump taught us this. And again, Democrats make their eyes twitch when I say this, because I speak truth and don't give a shit, is that it's okay to want to be rich. It's okay to want to be successful.
Okay. They just want the rules to be even.
Yes.
They want the rules to be even. They want to know that, like, they have an actual chance. They want to know that there's opportunity to do it, like investments in good schools, like, training. Like, they want to know that they have an equal chance. They hate if things are slanted against them.
Rigged.
Yeah, exactly. They hate the rig, anything that's rigged. They aren't mad at rich people. They're mad at rich people that try to screw them.
Right.
Big difference. In the Democratic blog, my consulting world, they have to also hate rich people or not. Like, that's not the case. Like, I have this problem all the time when I'm talking, like, oh, you go after, all these big guys, these big rich guys all the time, these oligarchs. I'm like, yeah, I do. Okay. Like, but then also you talk about prosperity. I'm like, yeah, because people don't think like us. We're the fucking weirdos.
Right.
Most people do not think that way. Most people can look at Elon Musk and say, glad you did what you did. Pissed that you're fucking with my family. You're messing with my family. You're messing with this. I'm happy you're rich. I want to make sure that you're not, doging, the VA, doging all this kind of stuff. Like, there's like this nuance that they have that we just don't accept because we need things to be easier. But that's not how they are. And we should accept that's how they are.
And things don't neatly fit into a campaign consultant or a lobbyist box around the way they think voters. They are simple, but they're also very complex, and they are very much able to think about many, many things, because guess what? Those people, especially immigrants, I have a lot of immigrants at my firm, and I'm amazed at how they can problem solve and think about things and be so complex, because after being around immigrants my whole life, is they figured out life every day that's the same way. How do I get my mom and daddy this? They don't even speak English, and being the interpreter and showing up and figuring out the social media, the way you have to fill out the form on the internet. Like we don't give voters enough credit on the way that they think, and we try to talk above them around things that they can be complex, but not even showing them and having real conversations. Two quick topics, and I'm going to let you go. One is, right now we're in a shutdown. We should talk about the shutdown. We are heading into the longest shutdown in government history. And I know you've been out there talking a lot about it. Give us, the listeners, the take on where you are on the shutdown right now and how we get out of it.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the longest shutdown. Do you want to see the first time, or the biggest increase in insurance premiums in the history of this country? That's what happens if we mess up this shutdown.
I'm on Obamacare, just so we're all clear. Regular folks, even guys who own their own business like me, I've got 5 employees, and I reimburse their Obamacare because that's the only way I can get insurance, because I can't afford to have Blue Cross and Blue Shield in my own policy.
Right. Exactly. And so what does the world look like right now? Look, it's awful what's happening to some of our government employees. They're going to get repaid. We're going to make sure they get all the back pay. That always happens. If we don't get this insurance situation right, 24 million people, remember, people also means families. So 24 million families are going to have their insurance rates double overnight, essentially starting January 1st. But all those decisions have to be made between November 1st and December 1st, right? So do I want to be in this situation? Absolutely not. It sucks that we're making people do this. But I am not going to contribute to people's insurance rates doubling right now when things are so damn expensive. I don't know if people understand. Energy is expensive. Food's expensive. You want to get a car? Good luck. You want to get a house? Good luck. Everything's expensive. And now there's one thing that we can definitely do. Well, 2 things. Number 1, end the tariffs. But number 2, reauthorize these Obamacare subsidies. It's fine to call it Obamacare. That's what most people call it. Don't. It's not a pejorative thing.
Whatever. It's great.
Yeah. But Republicans are going to choose to increase the healthcare premiums of millions of Americans overnight if they don't do something by November 1st. It's that simple. So I'm going to hold whatever I can do. I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that we put the pressure on the Republicans to come to a solution. Because what they're going to do, if we didn't put them in this situation, is they were just going to basically bowl through all of this, get till December 1st, open enrollment ends, people are lost their minds, they'll be like, well, sorry, we can't do anything, open enrollment's over, we'll just have to take care of you guys next year, and it's too late. Now, there's a lot of Machiavelli people that are like, well, why don't we just let them do that? Why don't we just let them screw the insurance market up, because then there's going to be a whole blowback when it comes to the election next year. The problem with that is, as one of those people that grew up, I, as much as I love winning, I can't personally put that many Americans in that type of pain. Like, the idea that we're going to force these families, a lot of them will just not buy health insurance again, or a lot of them will basically buy the cheapest plan that will still be more expensive. They have to go and find a way to pay for it. They'll have to cut somewhere else, or do something here. Like, I can't, my little heart, soft heart, can't actually do that to them. So this is why I'm putting the Republicans in a very hard spot. I want you to come and negotiate with me for a good compromise, not for me, not for the Republicans, but for these working class families, because they're the ones that are really going to hurt us. This hurts. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand this. Most families can't take more than a $600 to $800 swing.
Nope.
Any day. Now, you screw with somebody's insurance, these premiums can jump easily $600 to $800 a month. That is not easy to come up. It's just not easy to make up. Like that, they don't have that type of work. They don't have that type of savings. They just don't. You're just going to make them suffer. And it's like my job as a leader of my community, as a leader of my family, is to give them security, and that security comes with making sure that I get the best deal possible when it comes to these ACA premiums.
And to give another, I guess I'm going to expose my privilege, but I pay for Obamacare myself now for me and my wife, and I pay for a platinum plan, which is one of the best plans that they have.
That's
I
fine.
pay $2,000 a month for insurance.
Right.
I can't
Right.
imagine, Ruben, what you pay for with 3 little kids. Like, it's crazy that we're
No.
having to pay this
In
much.
Arizona, family of 4, $3,600.
That's crazy.
Now,
Right now, it's going to double in money,
double.
and
So
some folks just won't be able to do it.
$3,600 a month. Sorry, $3,600 a year, but it will double to $7,200 a year, $700 a month for a family of 4 in one of the lower plans, right? Which means you have to have higher copays and stuff like that.
Right. Mine's $2,000 a month.
Yeah, because you're old.
Yeah, right. And I pay for the good plan because I get sick a lot.
Yeah.
I don't get sick a lot, but I do things that could cause me to get hurt. Anyway, my last question is kind of going to that point is that, look, I want you to give some advice for people because there's me and you have a lot of things in common. You're one of my best friends. You have helped me so much in my life by lots of things that not going to talk about on this podcast, but there are lots of other men like me and you out there, right? They're not perfect. They've made mistakes. I've made mistakes. I've been forgiven by mistakes. I'm a redemption story. I'm all the things that I have been blessed to be able to do. And there's lots of young men out there that when we were in our 20s and 30s are out there, they think that, they have to do certain things or because they can't accomplish what me and you are living examples of what is possible.
Right.
You're a United States Senator. I run a firm and make a lot of money now, get to do a lot of cool shit, but it wasn't always like that. I never really had any real money till I was 50 years old. And then I got Mexican rich, which means I had money in my savings and me and Ebony could take vacations. That made me Mexican rich.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that.
I get it, yeah.
What's the advice you have? What do you have for that kid out there that's coming out of college who don't know? Like, what is your best advice when you give kids advice these days?
I mean, it's very simple, but actually it does matter because a lot of times you're going to be the first, right? So I was the first, Latino senator in the history of the United States, of Arizona, right? I was the, first in my family and first in my area to go to Harvard, right? Well, to go to college and go to Harvard. You have to believe in yourself because if you don't believe in yourself first, no one else is going to come in and believe in you, especially if you don't come from a background where people naturally are going to come and try to help you, right? If you don't come from a rich background, you don't come from a background of power, when you do something, there's not going to be this natural coalition of people that just kind of come and be like, hey, we're here, buddy, right? You literally have to will it and believe it. And one of the things that I think Chuck and I, we got along very well is because I met him even before I ran for Congress.
Right.
Right.
Through Vote Vest when you were a state rep.
Yep. And I had to make people believe that I could take out Kyrsten Sinema, win Arizona, ride above the red wave, and do it all while being myself. None of that would have been possible if I first didn't believe in myself, right? And if you're a man or a woman, if you're a Latino man or woman, if you're anybody right now, and you want to do something, you need to believe in yourself. That's how you get everyone else with you. It doesn't happen the other way, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's stuff I didn't have, there wasn't another Latino senator that was in the same situation that I was running in, right? No one had run in a red state the way that I was running. We have a lot of other great Latino senators, but they're not running in Arizona. They're not running, in the way that I was trying to run. It's not like I could reach out to them and be like, hey, how did you do this? Because even they told me it wouldn't match, right? So I had to believe in myself and then carry that belief to my team. And then the team carried it to the rest of the campaign. And that's what got these people excited to come out and support us and door knock for us. We had more door knockers sometimes than the Harris campaign had in Arizona. And a lot of it was because people wanted to believe in the belief that we were going to be able to do this in a very, very hard year. So whoever you are out there, trust me, believe in yourself first. And just going back to basics, freshman year, I go meet with my high school guidance counselor. And I go to him and he's like, where do you want to go to college? Where do you envision future college? I'm like, oh, I want to go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Like, really? Why? I'm like, oh, you're right, Georgetown. What's that Georgetown there too? And he's like, yeah, nobody from this high school goes to place. Why don't you think about University of Illinois? Why don't you think about maybe we could get you like, obviously community college is going to be an easy win. University of Illinois is a great school, by the way. There's nothing wrong with these kind of schools. But like, I had to make my guidance counselor believe in me first in order for me to get there. And the only reason I had to believe in myself. So like, if it wasn't for me saying I can get into these schools, he would never have facilitated everything else after that. Right. So before you do anything, whether it's business, leading anything, politics, believe in yourself. And sometimes you're going to have to fake it, but it matters. Fake it until you can actually get there.
I think that's so important. And I would end this by saying that if I connected that to my advice briefly, it would be your network is your currency if you don't come from money. And so who you meet when you're younger, and if you read Ruben's book and he talks about the brotherhood of when he served overseas, the brotherhood in his community, all the friends along the way, that's helped him get where he's at. I never been to college, and I talk like this, and I was a teenage father, and I got a criminal record, and all these things. One of them should have kept me out of politics, and I'm all of those things. But I had created a network of people throughout my life, like Ruben Gallego when I had hair and was skinnier, that would help me get to where I'm at today. They would end up hiring me. They didn't being friends because I didn't have, or my family didn't have any wealth or any network of folks who would give me work. So many of these people come to this town and it's not sure you'll be a senator because your daddy is such and such, or sure you'll be a lobbyist because your mama, or you got this thing. Neither one of us, and that will be always what ties us together. We beat the odds, and we're still making ourselves better every single day.
I mean, like, you got to meet some of these guys. Like, I had guys from the Marines that I served with 20 years ago that came into town to do Republicans to do campaign commercials for me.
Because of his network and because he was good to people. Be careful who you're an asshole to when you're young, because you'll end up working with them or for them when you get older. I'll promise you that. Senator, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Chuck.
I know you got to go get votes. Your team is texting me. Go do that.
Oh,
Thank
really?
you so
Okay.
much.
Adios. Say hi to Ebony for me.
I will. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Couples.